What's up, everybody? Blah, blah, blah. What's up, everybody? Coach Rob here. It's time for another YouTube video. It's been a minute. We got through Christmas. We got through New Year's. Happy New Year, everybody. 2023 is going to be kick-ass as far as this YouTube channel is concerned. I'm committed to bringing it this year on this very entertaining medium. It will be full of information and full of shenanigans regarding the carnivore lifestyle, the hard training lifestyle, and everything wrapped up in my whole hyper primal world. So I'm excited that you're here. We've got a lot of new subscribers just in the last 30 days, probably our biggest uptake in subscribers since I've had this channel. So I really appreciate it, especially if you're new. Thank you so much. If you're just joining me today, if this is your first experience in Rob World, then please smash that subscribe button. It really, really helps. I'm just a little guy trying to play with the big fish, and it goes a long way to push those algorithms. If you smash that button, hit the thumbs up, and even throw in a comment. Even if it's not nice, it's okay. Anyway, again, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do, as promised, way back before Christmas, an Ask Me Anything episode. Ask Me Anything. And I realized when I threw that out there, we might get some strange ass questions, but oddly we didn't. Most of it is right on point with training, nutrition, mainly nutrition. So what I did is I had a member of my lovely and talented staff randomly select questions from social media and throw them on a Word document, and I have them right here at my well-manicured fingertips. And we're ready to rock and roll. So hope everybody's having a good year so far. As of the time of this recording, it is January the 9th, 2023. Deep into a carnivore challenge, the KGB 33 challenge. And if you want to know more about that challenge, even if you want to jump in late to do your 33 days, there's a video. I'll try to throw it right up there. It's also within my recent library of videos that explains all about it. Jump into our Ketogenic Bodybuilding Facebook group if you want to know more as well. So all the links to anything relevant, pertinent, exciting, and whatever is in the show description. So read that. Okay, here we go. So let's dive right into the questions because I've got quite a few, a whole page worth. So I want to jump right in and get this thing rocking and rolling. So without further ado, let's get this episode going. Ask Me Anything. And what I like to do with an Ask Me Anything or a Q&A kind of a format is I don't like to see the questions beforehand. I glanced at some of them just to see how they were coming in. We got a lot. So this may be a two-parter if we can't get through them in a reasonable amount of time. And I believe there's even more that didn't make this list. And I want to try to get to all of the relevant questions that I can and try to answer them in the best fashion that I can. And be warned, I'm not one of these guys that pretends to know everything. I have a particular set of skills. And if it goes beyond my skill set, I'm going to tell you about that. And if it's within my skill set, I'm going to tell you to the best of my ability without any fluff or bullshit. This is no BS carnivore, as you know. So without any further ado, as promised, here we go. Question number 1. What piece of advice would you give someone considering this lifestyle? You know what? I'm not going to give you some groundbreaking piece of information. I stumbled onto this lifestyle because it was brought to my attention that dropping the carbohydrates, getting more animal-based, getting more ancestral with the way that I consume food, bringing in good, healthy, fatty meats, high protein, moderate fat, moderate to high fat and low carb was going to be best in terms of inflammatory distress, mental acuity, and things of that nature. I tried it. I liked it. And the deeper that I got into the lifestyle, the better it became. I went from paleo, good results, to ketogenic, great results, and then really started to dive headfirst into more of a carnivore, animal-based lifestyle nutritional protocol back in 2019. And I found for me that I like to think of it as the apex of the ketogenic diet. And I have my way of doing it. And that doesn't mean it has to be everybody's way of doing it. But my number one piece of advice would be this. Ease into it, because as I've discovered over the years, and I think that the literature proves this, so much of what happens in your body is related to the gut. It's the gut microbiome, the gut flora. It dictates so much in terms of how you feel, your health, your digestive system, everything. Everything seems to work off of those pesky little bugs that dwell within our intestinal tract. And in order to make those adjustments in your gut microbiome, you need to ease into any new dietary approach. Just change your dog's food overnight, and you know what I'm talking about. You'll probably get a literal shitstorm the next day. So for anybody easing in, I would say the number one piece of advice would be you need to slowly wean into it. So if you've been eating a lot of carbohydrate, then you want to slowly titrate down your intake of effective energy from carbohydrate. If you've already been fairly keto and you want to dive into more carnivore and you've been taking in a lot of vegetable matter or some fruit matter, then you want to slowly reduce that amount over the course of maybe a week or two as you gradually move into it. So we're always turning knobs. I use that analogy a lot. So the first knobs that I would turn on this lifestyle is gradually titrate the carbohydrate or even fibrous carbohydrate matter down as you're slowly bringing up the effective energy from more just straight animal-driven protein and fats from animal-based sources. The other thing is a little rule that I've been saying since probably 2015, all the years that I've been doing this. If the first thing you do when moving into a ketogenic or even carnivore lifestyle is try to find versions of those old foods that you used to eat in this new lifestyle, if you're trying to find a keto version of the shit that you used to eat or the stuff that got you into this mess in the first place, then you're going to fail. This lifestyle is about true ancestral healing, the best that we can in this modern era in the 21st century. No, you're not going to be eating like a caveman. It's just not possible in the world we live in today, but we try to take the best approach we can to mimic the success that our ancestors had many, many, many years ago, and that's the hunter-gatherers. So they craved fatty meats. I crave fatty meat, so that's where I go. My carnivore diet is fatty meats, eggs, and full-fat dairy. If you want a complete list of the foods that I consume on a very regular basis, you can pick that list up for free at my blog, which there's a link to my blog on my website, robgoodwin.com, or you can go to my blog site directly at hyperprimal.com. Obviously, all the links in the show description. So download the food list. You'll see how I do carnivore. I do a hyper carnivore protocol, which by definition is a nutrition protocol that is 70% or more coming from pure animal-based sources. So ease into it, titrate the carbohydrates and vegetables down as you raise the effective energy from animal-based sources, and stop looking for keto or carnivore versions of the shit that got you into this mess in the first place. Otherwise, you will fail, and that's pretty much a guarantee. I rarely see people do it by throwing in a bunch of artificially sweetened processed bullshit. Okay. Number two, how have your macros changed since going carnivore? The beauty of carnivore for me and for many of my clients has been the relatively cessation of meticulous tracking. Now, because of the world we live in, because we're not just strapping a spear on our back and wandering out onto the plains to kill an animal, it still is good to know from time to time what level of effective energy, i.e. calories, you're taking in on a regular basis, and to try to adjust a certain macros principle and keep that in check. So the great thing about the carnivore diet is, and this is going to ruffle a few feathers, I think if you're eating a pure carnivore diet, an animal-based diet, I think you can for the most part, throw accuracy of calories out the freaking window. I've learned over the years, I'm going to do a full video on this, but I've learned that, calories are a thing. They're a measurement of heat in the body, but in terms of accuracy, it's all over the damn map. So you can use caloric intake as a particular measurement tool, but understand that just because it says a certain number on a package doesn't mean that's actually what is contained in that serving. It's all over the map. Much like a body fat scale, if I stand on one of those body fat, bioimpedance scales that you get at Walmart or Walgreens or CVS or whatever, and I stand on that thing and it says I'm 17% body fat, for example, random number, it doesn't mean I'm really 17% body fat, because those things are very, very inaccurate. It can really, be in or out, plus or minus in a certain direction by several percentage points. However, I can take that 17, think of that as a baseline number, and as long as that 17 is reducing over the weeks and months, then I know that I'm probably moving in the right direction. So I can use that as well as how I look in the mirror, how I feel, how my clothes are fitting, and use that as a very constructive gauge on how things are moving along. But back to the original point, now that I am eating pure carnivore, this is the ruffle the feathers part, if you eat pure carnivore and you truly eat when you're hungry and you stop eating when you feel satisfied, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to put on body fat. I'd say 95% or more of the people out there that switch over to this lifestyle and do it, as prescribed, is you're going to drop body fat. You're going to find a level of success that you've been seeking. And that's if your level of compliance is high. And that's the key, is the level of compliance. If you're nibbling on bullshit and thinking just because nobody saw you do it that it doesn't count, then you're just tricking yourself. And I see this happen every single day. It's a psychology, it's a change, and this change in lifestyle is, it's weaning you off a serious addiction. And sugar and carbohydrates is an addiction. I don't care what anybody says. You can take your literature and shove it straight up your ass if you tell me that carbohydrate is not an addictive food that is train wrecking so many people out there. So my macros have been changed in this way: is I eat when I'm hungry and I eat till I'm satisfied. And the only tracking that I do is to see that if I'm roughly in the 60-40 range of macros or effective energy intake, and that division of macros 60-40. For me, my sweet spot is somewhere in the area of 40% of my intake or effective energy from protein and 60% of my effective energy intake coming from fat. These numbers may vary by the individual. Some may do better on 65-35 or I'm not a big proponent of 70-30. Some people like that. If it's working for you, you know what I always say, keep doing it. But if you don't feel like that things are completely optimal, maybe try that 60-40. I also believe 60-40 is great if you're trying to lean out a little bit. And it's also great if you're very active, if you train, which you should be. So if you're training, you're active, if you have a lot of output, I think the 60-40 is a great place to start, and then adjust the knobs from there. As I am coaching people or doing a consultation with people, I have a good knack for sort of figuring out where somebody's division of macros needs to be on a carnivore diet and how to use that within their training. So if you need somebody to work with you one-on-one, turns out I'm a coach and I do that. I've had a lot of success with that. And now I'm offering one-on-one consultations online. Check it out at my website, robgoodwin.com. These things are flying off the shelves. I've got a ton of consultations booked. I've already done a handful, and they are spectacular. We're having a blast doing that. It's amazing what you can uncover when you have a consultation with somebody and really get face to face. So that's how my macros have changed. Number 3, how has your supplementation changed since going carnivore? My supplementation has really not changed at all. I've been taking an animal pack, multivitamin pack, since 1994, almost every day. I think they're spectacular. I love the way that they're literally overdosed, mega dosed, and I think they need to be for anybody that's active. I'm an animal pack ambassador, and I am so because I believe in that company and I believe in their products. So I still take an animal pack, multivitamin pack every day. Links in the description. You can save 10%. Code's down there. I do that. I also do vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and magnesium every single day, no matter what. I think that is a great insurance policy. If I'm in the spring, summer, and fall, when I'm in the sun a lot, I make an effort to be in the sun a lot, I may take in around 10,000 IUs a day of vitamin D3 along with some K2. In the winter months, I may up that to even 20,000, and I find that works well for me. I feel great when doing that. But that's about it. I also do some liquid zinc. I think especially for male hormonal health, zinc is very important, so I get that in. And that's about it. I do some Animal Pack performance supplements strictly for performance in the gym and for maximizing muscle growth. And I still always take creatine monohydrate because I think it's still a phenomenal supplement to take for anybody lifting weights for the money, male, female, or anybody in between. I think it's phenomenal. So that's about all I do supplementation-wise. I also drink Element. I drink literally 2 to 3 of these bad boys every day. I think this stuff is awesome. Electrolytes and sodium and magnesium, critical, especially if you're on a low-carb or carnivore diet, if you're a hard-training athlete. I swear by this. If you use my link, which, yeah, it's down there, then you get free shit every time you order their shit. So please use that link. I would appreciate it because that helps to support the channel. So Element is something that I use every single day. All right. Number 4, I love being in ketosis, okay? After long periods of time, my ligaments ache, and in particular, my mid, back, and traps, to the point I've injured myself a couple of times and recovered after introducing carbs. Is it low glycogen, dry joints? It stops me every time I get lean. Okay, number 1, this is probably a consultation because there's a lot of shit going on here that I would need to really dig into. So if this is your question, consider that. And, the link is down there. But off the top of my head, I'm just going to break this down and give some general statements because I don't know this individual and there's a lot going on. I love being in ketosis. That's great. But understand you do not have to be in ketosis all the time. Ketosis is not a miracle. It's a metabolic state. You can go in and out throughout the day, and that's perfectly okay. Being more metabolically flexible, in my opinion, is more important. And I tell everybody, it's not a bad idea to get out of ketosis even once a day and have a little influx of insulin into your body. Insulin is an anabolic hormone. You do need some insulin. You get those people out there in the keto or carnivore space that preach against any insulin secretion whatsoever, which isn't really a thing. You're always going to secrete some. But to keep insulin completely at bay is actually negative. Remember, people, it's not about how much or how little, but finding the precise amount required in order to get the most optimal benefit. And insulin is no different. So if I'm wanting to secrete a little bit of insulin, which will kick me out of ketosis, which is fine, I'll either have a very high protein meal by itself, or I'll introduce a little bit of carbohydrates. And I think the best time to do that is around my workouts. No, it's not for everybody, but it does okay for me. And I don't do it every day. I usually go by feel, or if I feel like, if I just have this feeling that I need to shake things up a little bit and readjust my thermostat, I might throw 15 to 20 grams of a rice-based carbohydrate or a cyclic dextrin carb, or even some local raw honey over a rice cake 30 minutes prior to a workout, like a heavy leg day or a heavy back day. And that seems to do the trick. Or usually after my workout, my post-workout meal is usually very high protein and lower fat. This will also, for many, if it's a big whack of protein, will knock you out of ketosis, which is fine. You'll get a little bit of benefit from that gluconeogenesis. You'll get a little bit of an insulin secretion, which is a fine thing to do. And I find that people that may complain about some of these feelings that they're having, that this tends to alleviate that. And there are some people out there in the carnivore space who I admire very much who also echo the same bit of information as far as that one high protein meal. So there's a lot more going on. I don't think it has anything to do with dry joints. I don't think that's a thing. And but in terms of the low glycogen, it could be to a degree. So this person is somebody that I actually would like to have a consultation with if it's within their budget, and really walk through this and take 90 minutes to pick this apart and other elements of their program to really get a real snapshot of exactly what's going on in their training and nutrition life. So anyway, here we go. Thoughts and experience with weekly or bi-weekly glycogen refeeds. You mentioned steak and eggs in the video I did about steak and eggs with Vince Garanda, that he believed in a refeed. There's a company called Beverly International. It's a supplement company. It's been around forever, especially in the bodybuilding world, that always espoused this as well. But I found 2 days a week way too much for me personally. When I was doing hardcore bodybuilding prep from 2014 to 2018, I did weekly refeeds no matter what. 2019, I switched it up a little bit, and I just started going purely by feel, not necessarily every week. And that's when I really started doing, opting to do a little bit more targeted carbohydrate around my workouts, which worked really, really well and gave me the desired effect as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with a refeed. Hell, I'm the guy that printed t-shirts that said refeed on them and thought it was perfectly fine for many, but not everybody. It isn't an individual thing. We all have an individual carbohydrate tolerance, and it's not as much as you think. And when you exceed that, we can get into trouble. One thing I need to tell people is you need to start with a very, very small amount. So maybe try doing if you want to try the refeed thing, that's fine. It's not necessary for everybody. Some people may never do one for the rest of their lives, and that's fine. Some people may need to do them on occasions. And that's another thing that I do as part of my coaching practice, is I help people determine when that might be necessary or if it's never necessary. We make those calls based on a series of questions that I ask the clients and based on what I see in their training and their nutrition as we go through the process. So you may want to try just 100, 200 grams of carbohydrate, maybe from rice-based sources, or fruit and rice-based sources on a Saturday, and see how you do with that. Or you may do very, very well just by the aforementioned question, by adding a little bit of carbohydrate around hard training. That seems to do the trick. Or, as I mentioned earlier, you may want to try that one higher protein meal and see if you're in a constant state of ketosis, maybe bumping you out a little bit and taking advantage of that little insulin surge might also do the trick to get your body humming along the way you'd like. But I have no problem with refeeds or glycogen reloads. It's not necessary for most. Some people just like that, as long as it is not detrimental to your performance, if it's not detrimental to the way you feel. I have some clients that if they have a refeed at all, it completely tears them apart. I have some people that if they do one, once every couple of weeks, that does the trick and they feel better. So again, it's an individual tolerance thing that I usually base on my experience with working with the clients. All I can say is try a little, but remember this is probably the most key point about this is, I guarantee you don't need as much as you think you do, okay? Start with a very, very small amount and assess your tolerance, how you feel. And please, for the love of God, do not use a refeed as just an excuse to go binge out on a bunch of shitty carbs. I know people out there that do a refeed every week and literally load up on garbage like sugary breakfast cereals and Pop-Tarts and just shit. And that's not doing anybody any good. It's terrible for your body. It's terrible long term. I would never recommend anybody do that. That is not a refeed. That is a cheat, okay? You got to know the difference. So do not use the word refeed and trick yourself into thinking that you're doing a refeed just to give yourself an excuse to go eat a bunch of shit, all right? All right, let's move on. This probably has been discussed more times than you'd like. No, not really. But can a man build muscle and lose fat without any other adverse effects occurring in the body? I'm not sure what adverse effects you're referring to, but the process of body recomposition by adding muscle and losing fat, I can't think of one negative thing about that. I can't think of one side effect from that, unless you go so deep into a long-term energy deficit that you start to suffer metabolic distress. This is the problem with people who are chronically dieting all the time. And this is why I think a carnivore diet is the way to alleviate that. It's going to be very, very difficult to overeat on a carnivore diet, and it's going to be very, very hard to put on body fat or any sort of excessive amount of body fat on a carnivore diet unless your leptin and ghrelin is completely out of whack. So in other words, if you're just complete metabolic train wreck, I still think a carnivore diet is a great idea, or at the very minimum, a well-structured ketogenic diet, but I think it should be done under the supervision of a coach or somebody that knows this lifestyle, that knows how to sort of adapt to you. So building muscle is about being well-fed. And if you're truly trying to pack on muscle and you've been training for a while, you're not a brand new lifter or whatever, then you do need to have, a slight surplus in effective energy, i.e. calories, food intake, in order to create the best metabolic and anabolic environment to building muscle. So I do still like the old school approach of having a gain phase and a cutting phase. And I do this like a lot of people do. In the winter months, I might tend to eat a little bit more effective energy, not worry so much about taking in a little bit more food, and I have a little bit higher fat percentage in my level or my, weight of effective energy intake, the amount of food that I eat. And then if my goal is to then get myself leaned out and shredded with the exposed abs and 10% body fat, then I slowly titrate down my level of effective energy from fat and raise that protein up just a little bit, and then start to be a little bit more hyper aware of not eating quite so much, taking in a little bit less effective energy. But the great thing about a carnivore diet or a well-structured ketogenic diet is that you're going to be taking in such great foods that lend to great metabolic health and hormonal production, like animal-based proteins and fats, that it's going to be, not only are you going to be able to keep and restore and build new lean muscle mass, but it's also going to be fairly easy for you to trim off any excess body fat and get to a place that you want to be. So again, this might be something that you want to do a consult with me or do some short-term coaching just to dial everything in and make sure you're on the right track to doing this, because I have a massive amount of experience in working with athletes and diet. So there you go. Best stubborn fat protocol for ladies who significantly hold, I'm assuming, more fat in the lower body, or men who hold it in their abdomen. Any competition prep tips for folks with stubborn fat? Number one, there's somebody out in the gym cranking music. So if that's coming through, I apologize. Must be a session going on, one of my trainers. Or maybe you might enjoy, except it sounds like New Country, and I don't like New Country. Why that's being, never mind. So best stubborn fat protocol for ladies who hold significantly more fat in their lower body, or men who hold in their abdomen. Any competition prep tips for folks with stubborn fat? I hate to oversimplify this. It's just about time in a mild energy deficit. It really is. And you need to keep playing with that. And I'm not gonna lie to you. If you are in a competition prep, if you're trying to get shredded like crazy, unnatural freaking lean, the kind of lean that you can't sustain long term without completely destroying your metabolic health, but you want to get to that level where you can stand on stage or go to a photo shoot and be shredded lean, then you're going to have to take yourself deep, deep into the pain cave, really reduce that effective energy intake into a steep deficit for a short amount of time, suffer a little bit, because that's what it takes to get shredded lean. Don't let anybody lie to you. There's no magic formulas, magic pills, unless you take some ridiculous compound for getting shredded. But I found that the best thing for that is sacrifice, hard work, and good old-fashioned suffering to achieve that super low level of body fat. It will happen. Body fat comes off equally from head to toe for the most part, So wherever you're carrying the most will be the last place that you're lean. That's just the logical way to look at this. So if you genetically are the type to hold on to body fat in the hips, well, the hips are going to be the last place you're lean. If you tend to hold on to it in the gut, well, that's going to be the last place you're lean. Me personally, when I was competing, my biggest struggle was lower back, is where I held on to that last remaining amount of fat. And even in 2019, when I had one of my best physiques and won my class, several classes in competition, I still held some body fat there that I didn't like. And it wasn't until in 2021 that I got to one of my lowest stage weights. I think I was 208 pounds. I finally, after all those years, got to the point where I had that shredded little Christmas tree in my back and that lower back fat was absolutely gone. But it took some suffering to get there. And you can ask my wife, for the last 6 weeks of that prep, we literally locked any unapproved food, which is just about everything, into 2 giant Yeti coolers and put padlocks on them. And the only damn thing I ate for 6 weeks was freaking whitefish, chicken breast, and 97% lean ground beef. So, and egg whites. So a very hard, rigorous diet that I wouldn't recommend for anyone to do long term, but just for somebody who's trying to take that last little bit down and get shredded, or for somebody who's in a contest prep scenario. Okay, hope that helps. Number 9, I do progressive overload. Everybody should. That just means that you're progressively overloading the muscles with resistance, and you take it to the point of momentary muscular failure in effect to damage the muscle, so you then in turn recover and then not only compensate but overcompensate from that stimulation in order to grow new lean mass. Okay, where was that at? Okay, I do progressive overload. How would you approach a 3-month diet with this style of training? If you're trying to put on muscle, go into slightly elevated, effective energy surplus. A little bit more than what your baseline is. Take in more food, lots of protein, healthy dietary fats from animal-based sources. Perhaps try doing a little bit of carbs around your training so you get the most out of that training. Go freaking hard. Try that for 3 months. Determine what for you is slightly above your maintenance level of effective energy intake. Slam that food and train your ass off. That's the formula. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. That's just what it takes. You need to train harder than you've ever trained. You need to diet harder than you've ever dieted. When I say diet hard, whether you're in a gain phase or a cut, it's still the same amount of discipline required in order to achieve whatever that goal is at that time. So, let's see. Due to inflammation, keto lifestyle has gotten... due to inflation. Inflation, not inflammation. Joe Biden's not responsible for inflammation, but inflation, okay? Due to inflation, the keto lifestyle has gotten way more expensive. Anything keto-related food has almost doubled. What would you suggest? What is keto-related food? Ketosis, to achieve ketosis, is just about the absence of glucose. Drop the carbs, take in your effective energy from protein and fat, you'll get into ketosis, I promise you. Pretty much for most people, if you're under 30 grams of carbohydrates consistently, you're going to reach ketosis. So what are the best foods? Let's change this question. What if you're trying to do carnivore or keto and you're on a budget? Ground beef, you can get 73% ground beef, very, very affordable if you shop around. Whole chickens, buy a turkey. No matter what happens, typically whole turkeys are still extremely low price per pound. So roast a whole damn turkey like you would at Thanksgiving and pick off that son of a bitch for a week. We do that all the time. It's fantastic. Ain't nothing like a big, giant turkey leg. Eat that shit like a Viking, and that's good stuff. Turkey is great. So honestly though, I've got chickens. I have 17 chickens literally in my backyard in a neighborhood. So I get a lot of fresh pastured eggs. So I do that, and I do a lot of ground beef. You can get certain cuts of red meat that aren't the popular ones, like certain, chuck and flank and certain other pieces. You can get a big butt roast for very, very little. You can get lean pork at a decent price if you shop around. I've also learned that my local Walmart will put their grass-fed steaks and ground beef on sale. They put this big yellow sticker on it, and I've learned that they do that on Tuesdays. So I always stop by on Tuesday to see if they have some more, and then I just freeze it and then thaw it when I need it and save a lot of money there. I've gotten $7 packs of ground beef on sale for $3 because it was approaching the expiration date. But the inflation buster for keto carnivore is just, for me, a lot of ground beef and a lot of chicken and a lot of eggs, and I do great with that. And I found that, because of the massive amount of shit that I'm no longer eating, that is no longer present in my house. I don't buy hardly any vegetables anymore. I mean, I'm not doing anything but meat and full-fat dairy, and just buying those things alone for my family has made it very affordable, even in light of this current inflation BS that we're going through. So that's the way it works for me. So what does your blood work look like? The last time I got my blood work done, which wasn't too long ago, of course, my cholesterol was too high, according to conventional doctors. Thank God I have found a PA that has become a darn good friend of mine, that understands what a ketogenic carnivore lifestyle is. He also understands that cholesterol has nothing to do with heart disease. He understands that cholesterol is in every cell of the body, and it's responsible for all the good things that happen to us every single day, and it binds with vitamin D. It helps build healthy testosterone levels. He doesn't give two shits about my high levels of cholesterol. All I care about is my triglycerides, which are normal. My triglycerides generally range into this around 60s or 70s on a bad check. And my HSCRP, which is the effective overall systemic inflammation in my body, is perfect. Very, very low level there. So the last time I got my blood work done, it was very good, except for what our completely broken federal government and FDA would consider healthy levels of dietary cholesterol. When I saw my cholesterol numbers, I was ecstatic because I knew that I was a healthy 54-year-old male. So my blood work, thank God, has been very, very good. And I feel amazing. And the more carnivore I get and the cleaner I get, the better I feel, the better I perform, the better I sleep. I also check a lot of metrics on my Garmin watch. I'm not a huge technology guy, believe it or not, but I do love this Garmin watch because it gives great health metrics. My sleep, my heart rate variability, my levels of overall stress in the body, and all factors of and pertaining to stress in the body. And in the past, I've been doing this 33-day challenge, and then I did this no carbs till Christmas challenge, and which basically for me just meant I cleaned it up a little bit more than I already was. And my metrics of health on my Garmin have been staggeringly good. My levels of stress have been the lowest that they've been ever. My sleep quality has been outstanding. My heart rate variability has been outstanding. My performance has been great. I sleep like a baby. My sleep score is crazy high. It's in the excellent range every single day. So I must be doing something right. No, I'm not on death's door, and I won't be dropping from some sudden death incident anytime soon, God forbid. So anyway, blood work is good. It's been a while though, so I'm looking to get my blood work checked again, probably in March. I usually do it in March or April. I will definitely let you know what those exact numbers are. Happy to do that. Okay. How soon is too soon for your first competition? I'm just starting, and there is a competition 32 weeks from December the 24th that I'm interested in. 24 weeks is sort of my standard, which is 6 months, of when you start to clean everything up and work your way into a cut. So as long as you feel like you have an adequate amount of muscularity and you're not what you would call a fat guy or a fat girl, then I think that's plenty of time if you're willing to really dig in and be super strict. So in other words, if you have maybe faintly visible abdominals, if you can see some muscle separation, If you feel like you've built an adequate level of muscularity or a decent level of muscularity, you've been training in the gym for a couple of years or many, many years, and that you can sort of see that picture, if you squint, then, you start, slowly titrating everything down and working into that cut at 24 weeks. When I work with a client, I go through pretty much, when we do that 24-week cut phase begins, I start you at 24 weeks. We make certain adjustments and set certain parameters. Then we readdress that around 16 weeks. And then at 12 weeks, it starts to really get serious. And that's when it's on. That's when it starts to go nuts. And then another big adjustment at 6 weeks. Then you're in suffer mode. And then we work all the way down to what we call peak week, which is the week before competition. And during that peak week, we go through a very calculated, specific approach that gets you to the stage ready to freaking crush it and do what about only 1% of the population does. So I'd say if you meet any of that criteria, do it. Let me know if you need help. Okay. The golden question, apparently. This is the golden question. How do I keep most of my size while trying to burn fat? I am 14%, but as soon as I start cutting, I look smaller. I want to be 10%, maybe 8% at 200 pounds. Okay. Number one, when you start to cut, if you want to get down to sub 10% body fat, you're going to lose some muscle. Get over it. Deal with it. There's no way around it. Even guys who are juiced to the gills are going to lose a little bit of muscle mass. That's fine. If you're 14%, then provided you have any decent level of muscularity, I promise you, when you get down to, if you can get down to that 10 to even 8% range, you're not going to be dissatisfied by what you think is an apparent lack of size. When you get shredded, it gives you the appearance of size. Maybe not in a t-shirt, but when you strip that shirt off, when you go to the lake or the beach or whatever, then it's going to be a very, very impressive look, even if, you are under 200 pounds. That's not a problem. And to say, I want to be 10% or 8% fat at 200 pounds, you don't know how much you're going to weigh when you're at 8%. You won't know until you get there. When I was competing, I knew how I wanted to look. And look was about conditioning, being as lean as possible and trying to do whatever I could to preserve lean muscle mass. What I ended up on the scale is what I ended up. I had no control over that. So for me to get down to 4 or 5% body fat, if that meant I was 206 pounds on the scale, then so be it. If it meant I was 210, so be it. If it meant I was 198, so be it. For me, it was only a matter of how shredded can I get, because I knew when I was competing, I was not going to be the biggest guy up there, but I knew I could outwork everybody and suffer more and get to a crazy level of leanness to give me this appearance of size. When I was competing, it was funny that somebody would see a picture of my competition photos and then meet me in person. Well, they thought I was kind of unimpressive in real life. They're expecting this big, huge guy. And that's what you think about with bodybuilders. You think they're all these giant monsters, and they're not. But when you get super, super lean, you have this appearance of size. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all smoke and mirrors. So I promise you, do whatever it takes to get down to that 8%. You're going to look badass and take a whole bunch of pictures and just enjoy it. It's nothing that you'll probably ever want to try to sustain long term. But when you get there, enjoy it for 30 days. Kick ass, and then try to be somewhere in that 10 to 14% range year round, because that's a healthy level of body fat for most men. And you're so close to being shredded that right before summer, you can shred down to that 8% again, kick ass all summer, and then come back into the fall months back up to a healthier level of body fat. So, all right, number 13, for testosterone, carbs and fat are playing a major role. How to increase testosterone naturally in a keto diet without eating carbs. Carbs do not play a role in building testosterone. You're going to drop levels of testosterone if you are in a deficit for too long, or if you're not taking in enough healthy dietary fat and having a nice balance approach to your ketogenic or carnivore lifestyle. It is healthy fats, protein, D3, cholesterol, all these things that work in synergistically in order to raise your testosterone levels. Carbs do not play a role. The only way carbohydrate might play a role is if eating some carbohydrate around your training causes you to train much harder than you typically would, because we know that lifting heavy things under heavy load, very high intensity, does produce or stimulate the production of testosterone, provided that all the other elements are in place, i.e. healthy dietary fats, healthy protein, vitamin D, sunlight, cholesterol, all these things working together. So that's why if somebody has low levels of testosterone and they're a male and they come to me, the thing I'm always preaching to them is lift heavy, eat lots of healthy fats with your protein, get out in the sun, and get lots of sleep. You do those 4 things, your testosterone levels will naturally rise. So keep that in mind. I don't know this person personally, talking about raising testosterone. There may be a history there that we don't know about that is limiting their ability to produce testosterone. That might be something you want to consider doing a consultation with me, and we can walk through some steps that might pertain specifically to you to get those levels back up. Okay, number 14. I think this might be the last one. I hope so. Actually, there's one more. There's 15. Okay, 14. How do you effectively manage cortisol? Ketosis and HIIT, high intensity training, both drive up cortisol for most, leading to a host of unfortunate issues. Catabolic muscle breakdown, resistant abdominal fat, thyroid downregulation, less than optimal T, sleep issues, etc. You have clearly figured out a way to manage these issues for yourself and your clients, so I'd really appreciate your insights if you are willing to share. Long-term ketosis, consistent, may produce suboptimal results in terms of elevated cortisol for a long period of time, but that's usually only for certain outliers. Once again, I don't think you need to be in ketosis all the time. I don't think it's a place you want to be. I think more metabolic flexibility is better, and I think bumping out from time to time and secreting a little bit of insulin is a good thing, even daily. So most people are in a severe energy deficit. They're taking in too little food, and that's what's causing it, because also their output is so great. So you're training your ass off, you're doing some cardio, you're not taking in enough effective energy from food to generate a proper hormonal response, so everything kind of tanks, and you blame it on cortisol from ketosis. There may be some truth to that, and if this person is doing a high intensity training protocol, which I do, then I think you're not going to have a catabolic muscle breakdown, in my opinion. You're not going to have or develop resistant abdominal fat or thyroid downregulation or hormonal production, provided that you have an optimal amount of effective energy coming in from healthy proteins and healthy fat from animal-based sources, and you're getting regular sun exposure, your vitamin D levels are good, your cholesterol levels are good, you're training heavy, you're getting ample recovery. All these things come into play. And once again, there's nothing wrong with dipping in and out of ketosis. So for you, if that means a little bit of carbs around a heavy, high-intensity training session, maybe that'll work for you. Or maybe having a very high-protein meal once a day or once every other day to generate or stimulate the release of a little bit of insulin, and take a little bit of break from that deep ketosis might be a good thing. With ketosis, once again, it's not a miracle. It's a metabolic state, and it doesn't matter what your level of ketosis is. If you are checking blood ketones, and let's say you're a 0.9 or a 3.0, it doesn't matter. All that really matters, you're either in or you're out, and it's not some miracle for fat loss. It's not a miracle at all. It's just an alternative energy source that we use for certain processes in a carb-restricted environment. So I also think adaptation is key as well for somebody like yourself. Maybe right out of the gate, you might have some hormonal disruption from it. If you jump in too fast or too hard, you're not mindful to titrate down and sort of slowly wean into a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet. That's very, very important too. We covered that way back in one of the first questions. So this also may be an issue for a consultation, but what I would tell you is make sure you're getting enough food to supply effective energy and hormonal response relative to the level of output that you're going through with your training. I see this every day. People killing themselves in the gym, great. People doing some cardio, fine, whatever, as long as it's not too much or too long. And they're not taking in enough energy and not a good division of macros in order to supply their body with what they need. Some people are taking in way too much fat and not enough protein. That could be a result. Some people are taking in way too much protein and not enough fat. That could be a result. Maybe you're one of those people that needs a little bit of carbohydrates around training to give you that little bit of a surge of insulin throughout the day. Maybe that's it. Maybe you just need a break from ketosis and throw in a high protein meal. All these things work, and it's individually based. So try some of those things. Make sure you're getting adequate intake. And if you need to, let me know. Maybe we can work through some of this stuff and lay out the proper framework to taking you where you need to go. All right. Number 15 is also the last question today. Fasting after a workout, harmful or beneficial? I've always lived by the thought that you eat right when you are done working out. So did I. I did that for years and years and years. At one time, it was drilled into my head from the bodybuilding community that you needed to saturate your muscle cells with protein post-workout in order to achieve some anabolic window. That is highly debatable depending on who you ask or what study you cherry pick. But here is my belief now. It doesn't matter. If your body requires X number of grams of protein or X percentage of protein coming from your effective energy intake throughout the day, as long as by the end of the day, your cumulative intake of protein reaches that level, you're fine. So let's just say that you need 180 grams of protein in a day. That's roughly 38 to 40% of your effective energy intake from protein, which I think is a great number, especially if you're training hard. So whatever that number is, if that's your number, if you need 180 grams for you, if that's what the calculation comes to, then as long as you get that 180 grams in from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're fine. You're fine. You don't need to take it in right after training. I usually do take in a little bit or a higher protein meal right after training. I just like it. It's what I'm used to. It satisfies me. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I also don't think it's an anabolic miracle. So again, as long as you're taking in what your body needs based on your genetics and your performance and whatever your goals are, as long as you've taken that in cumulatively by the end of the day, you're going to be fine for that. And so I wouldn't say it's harmful or necessarily beneficial. But if that's something, if you just like the idea of sitting down to a nice high protein meal after a hard workout, which I often do, I have no problem with that. But I also don't think you're going to get any benefit from not taking in that meal after training. I have a certain way that I eat throughout the day. It's usually 3, sometimes 4 meals. It's usually 3 normal size meals with something small, all animal-based foods. And I just have my preferred times that my body usually responds with hunger signals naturally. So I respond to those hunger signals. I know my body so well, and I've been doing this so long. They usually occur roughly about the same time every single day. So I respond to that by eating a nice carnivore-based meal. So you're going to be fine either way, as long as by the end of the day, you've taken in an adequate level of protein from animal-based sources. You're going to be fine. Okay. I think that's enough for one day. I'm not sure how long I've been going. I don't have my little clock timer out here, but I also don't want to run the risk of my battery dying on my camera. I forgot to plug it in. But that's a good Ask Me Anything day. And I didn't get any weird questions, which would have been good or bad. Actually, somebody did ask me a weird question. And I think it came from Instagram, maybe Twitter. I don't remember. But they asked what they saw the Star Wars shit. I'm a Star Wars fan. Around my office, and they wanted to know what I thought or what my favorite Star Wars movie was. Empire Strikes Back. I will fight anybody that doesn't agree with that. If you don't agree with that, you're fucking insane. You're not a real fan. First one was fantastic, groundbreaking. I have literally been at opening day for every Star Wars movie since 1977. or opening weekend, I should say. There was a couple of the prequels I was at opening weekend. But I've been there at every opening weekend since 1977. I was 9 years old. So the first one was fantastic because I was 9. Nobody had ever seen anything like that. Great movie. Empire was fantastic because it's so dark. It leaves you on a cliffhanger. It's Darth Vader's always pissed off and killing everybody. It's just had a whole different vibe to it. It was awesome. I don't want to talk about the prequels. That just makes me angry. But in the modern era, in this new era, Rogue One is spectacular. I don't care what anybody says. It, parallels what was going on the first movie. And everybody dies. It's dark. It's shot beautifully. It's acted spectacularly. We get to see Darth Vader doing epic Darth Vader shit. So there you go. So yeah, I'm a fan. But other than that, I think that's it. There might be some more questions that I'll figure out what was left out. I'll compile that for the next round of Ask Me Anything. And again, guys, thank you for your support. 2023 is going to be kick-ass. And I look forward to spending more time with you in this YouTube channel or on this YouTube channel. So please hit the subscribe button, tell a friend, share this channel with other like-minded people, and check out all the links in the show description and help support the channel. And with that, I'm out. I will end with what I always end with. Train hard, diet harder, but above all, have a great day.